autism. What can you tell us about gut health and autism, and more importantly, what parents can do to help their child that might be on the autism spectrum?
I think if you, I was saying this in another interview, if you give me 1,000 or 10,000 or 1,000,000 children with autism, and I'm allowed to put a bet whether something like a GI map will find pathogens, I'm willing to bet every single time, $1,000 every single time, that I would be right. And you can run an infinity amount of people through this thought experiment, and I will come out on the other end a very rich man, because um, that's how certain I am that most of these kids have some type of gut pathology. I'm not saying it's the only issue, but if it was my child right now, if let's say my child is being suspected of being on the spectrum, touch wood, and not that it's a bad thing or anything, but I just know the stress associated with having a special needs child, because I've worked with parents. But if it was my child, the first thing I would do is immediately run something like a GI map stool test, and potentially an organic acids test, to see what the picture is in the gut. And usually, at least from my experience clinically, usually we have a certain overgrowth of either a commensal with low, let's say, lacto and bifidose. There'll be some type of there'll be either Clostridium difficile, which we can detect with the organic acids test, or just Clostridia species in general seem to be overgrowing very very often. Candida is almost a given. High oxalates are very common, which could be because of candida or other fungal stuff or mold. B vitamin deficiencies are very common. Now we know a lot of these kids are they have a self-selected limited diet, and that can usually be isolated to just maybe a fruit or two, or something sweet, or bread, or they like milk. So very limited. Actually, milk wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, of course, but the problem is if there's a lot of intestinal permeability and pathogens, milk or casein, certain compounds in milk can be immunoreactive. They can have that sort of molecular mimicry we were talking about earlier. They can basically be potentially antigenic and cause further immune reaction and inflammation. So gut, I think the focusing on the gut is the number one priority for most of these children, unless you can pinpoint a special a precipitating event like exposure to a toxin, including a jab, which is very very commonly one of the biggest sources of exposure to these kids. So yeah, I think these kids, to truly help these kids, this thing has to be taken seriously. The whole health, lab testing, nutritional supplementation, lifestyle, detoxification, toxin reduction, all of this stuff that falls under the umbrella of sleep hygiene, every single one of these things has to be taken really seriously. You can't just do what is easy or what is convenient. And what I've noticed is many parents, they will do what's easy. And for some folks, the easiest thing to do is to order supplements. And then I'll tell them, okay, but this kid needs to eat liver, needs nutrients, real nutrients, not synthetic B vitamins and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, well, sometimes people are vegetarians, like for religious reasons, or for example, in Africa, you can't really find high quality food like meat and stuff like that very often. So they would prefer to do some things, even though every single pillar is holding up this building, let's say, right? So you have to reduce toxic exposures, because if a child is not eating well because of a self-selected diet, and they're not assimilating the nutrition because of a gut dysfunction, that means that their detoxification system will be compromised. So any toxins coming from environmental exposures are going to be more of a burden on their system. So we have to really tackle tackle it from multiple different places. Same with sleep. If there's gut dysfunction, the child is going to have sleep problems, or that is going to feed into behavioral issues, aggression to self, aggression to others, crankiness, inability to focus, to learn new things. So we can fix the gut, but if the sleep hygiene is out of whack, and if the kid is like staring at a mobile phone for 2 hours before bed, that's going to hamper our progress. So we really want to tackle all of these things. So in my book, I've kind of talk about lab testing, the basic lab test. So like I said, a stool test and an organic acids test. These probably would be the two most important tests, at least one of them. With smaller kids, stool testing is much easier than collecting urine samples. Now with the pediatric collection bags, especially for girls, it's a big hassle. So with older kids, not so much of a problem. Then I also like the dried blood spot finger prick test for food reactivity, food sensitivities. We know that there's many ways to react to foods, not just IgG antibodies. We know that there's many different ways, but it's a good way to quickly see if something is off the chart, which sometimes there will be. For example, with I remember one dad, he was very he was very apprehensive towards changing the diet. So as soon as I saw the IgG food sensitivity panel result, I'm like, oh, thank God, I have some leverage now to argue my point of view. And we had, for this particular child, we had the gluten was off the charts, casein was off the charts, and meat glue, which is the Mosaic Diagnostics, formerly the Great Plains Lab. They have in the food sensitivity test, they have a marker for meat glue, and the meat glue marker was off the chart for this kid. And the dad was like, I remember it was funny. The dad was like, looking at this, I'm like, how is he reacting to meat glue? I'm like, what about those fish fingers? So I was telling him from the start, and he was like, guilty. I was telling him from the start, you need to give your kid real meat, not fish fingers. I know he likes them. I know it's gonna suck to have to wean him off them or whatever, but it's ideally for the best outcomes, we need to do that. And he kept, you have to, at the same time, you have to maintain your own sanity. People have jobs, people have other things, or sometimes other kids. So when I had the gluten, the milk, and the meat glue as the only reactive things on the test, I'm like, look, these are the things that we have to take out of because I recommend in the book all families give the gluten-free, casein-free diet a trial for 3 to 6 months. And it's not because it's necessarily gluten causing your child's health problems or casein, but there's enough evidence that shows that kids get benefit. So if you just remove potentially inflammatory things like gluten, casein, and a bunch of other grains, what you're also doing is you're replacing them with healthier things. So other animal products, butter, liver, ideally. During that process, a lot of good things are already happening. Now we couple that with a food sensitivity panel, then we identify any specific foods that are highly reactive. That's another thing that's removing inflammation. The organic acids test or the GI map will tell us what pathogens we have or are dealing with, and what the best approach is to deal with those. So just these things already, we're removing a great deal of potential causes of inflammation. We're helping the gut heal by, again, removing obstacles to health, adding better nutrition. And then as well as that, we want to add we want to add some supplements. And the basics are, a multivitamin, high quality stuff, of course, methylated B vitamins, B6, B12, and folate, like in the methylated form. I think these are quite important because quite a bit of research has shown that autistic kids have either some type of MTHFR polymorphism or high homocysteine levels, or just frank low B12, low folate. And there's been quite a lot of research with B6 and high doses of B6 showing good promise. And there's just a lot of benefits from adding B vitamins to the mix. Then of course zinc